All right, Shalom. Let me get straight into this lesson, but I was gonna play this clip, you know what I'm saying? But I think I'm gonna get a copyright strike, so I'm just gonna hold off on that. So in this movie, I advise you brothers and you sisters to go watch this movie. It's called The Matrix. It's a heavy, heavy movie, highly spiritual movie when you look at it through a spiritual lens. So in this particular scene in the movie, Neo, which the word Neo means new, when you go into the word. So Neo had to make a decision to take the red pill or the blue pill. And this is the same thing in the truth. I'm gonna show you what this means. What does this mean? The red pill, the blue pill. Right, let's go here. 1 second. 1 second, Salakia. Okay, right here at the top. It says the red pill or blue pill are terms that refer to a choice between learning and unsettling truth or remaining in ignorance. This term originated from the 1999 movie The Matrix. Right here. It says the red pill, enlightenment, accepting harsh truths, and awakening to reality. It says blue pill, comfort, blissful ignorance, and remaining in an illusion. And, I use this to make this analogy because when you come into the truth, you take the red pill. So I wish I can play that clip. That's how heavy it was in this movie when he had his hand, folded out. One hand had the red pill and one hand had the blue pill. And he was reaching towards the blue pill, something like that. I think he was reaching towards the blue pill. Then he switched over to the red pill. But the blue pill is the world. That's these people in the world. They comfortable, they in blissful ignorance, and they remaining in an illusion, a fake world, fake society, fake history, lies on top of lies. They believe everything that the media, the news tell them. They believe the whole construct of this place. We have taken a red pill, which is enlightenment, accepting the harsh truths and awakening to reality. Awakening to reality. So right here, it says you take the blue pill, the story ends, you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I'll show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. That was a line from that movie. But yeah, it's a rabbit hole in this truth. You're always going to constantly be learning. It's endless, right? Once you get your foundation, right, it's endless. It's constant. Everything that you've been taught has been a lie. And most people are under the influence of the blue pill. And when they presented with the truth, say if we had the red pill and blue pill in our hand, they're going to take the blue pill because people want to stay comfortable. They want to stay into Christianity. They want to stay in these different genres of these strange ways of thinking. Let's go here. So all this indoctrination had to start somewhere, right? So I'm going to take you to Wonderland, down a rabbit hole. Check this out. So everything that you've been taught in this society has been through a point of view, through an interpretation of a so-called white person, whether you know it or you don't know it. And what's scary is most people don't know this because you're telling this, they'll say, no, not me. Let's get into this. Check this out at the top. It says, letting your oppressor educate you is harmful because it allows those in power to control the narrative. They tell you who you are, right? They give you your history. That's why they always give you the history, which, you starting as slaves. They don't want to know they don't want to let you know how powerful you were and you is today. So that's why they give you the slave narrative that you was nothing but slaves and you never contributed to anything in history. And that's for the so-called Mexicans and the so-called Native Americans, so-called blacks. This is your narrative that they gave you. That's why Malcolm X said this, even though Malcolm X was bugged out into Islam, he said only a fool will let his oppressor educate him. And our women get into these pseudo education system in these colleges and they end up going under that Greek influence with these fraternities and all that madness, right? And being indoctrinated under this way of thinking. The whole medical system is based on the Greek system. A lot of these things that you say day to day in the medical field is based on Greek mythology, Greek culture, and Roman culture, which is all Edomite culture. You don't know this. The law is based on Roman law, right? It says, define your identity and shape your understanding of the world in ways that maintain their dominance. Here are a few core reasons why. So this is why you don't let your enemy never educate you. Number one, it says preservation of power structures. It says oppressors. Who is the oppressor? The so-called white man. Oppressors often design educational systems to uphold the status quo. They may erase or distort histories, cultures, and knowledge that challenge their authority. They'll tell you that, these devils, right, was all upstanding Christian men, which all these presidents, the founding so-called fathers, was all devils and they all owned slaves. But they'll tell you that they was all great men. This ensures that oppressed people remain unaware of their power, of their history, or their rights. Let's go here. Let's go down that rabbit hole. Number two, it says internalized inferiority. It says when the oppressor educates, they often teach from their own perspective, presenting their values, presenting their norms, and presenting their achievements as superior. Over time, this can lead to the oppressed to internalize a sense of inferiority or self-doubt. That's why they tell you that all these devils created everything that you know today, not knowing that Jake, our people, created most of the modern day inventions that you know today, and they actually stole from every society, and that's how they was able to put all these things together by stealing, killing, raping, and robbing. It says 3, control critical thought. This is one of the most important ones right here. True education empowers people to question, analyze, and to think critically. That's why they gave you this Christianity, right? That's all the Christianity that you've been taught. It's all through the perspective of a so-called white person. That's why they gave you the artwork. That's why they gave you the movies. That's why they gave you the books. It's them showing themselves as righteous. They even renamed themselves white for what that word means. And they renamed you black, which is evil, wicked, sinister, untrustworthy, dirty, nasty, ugly. It says, an oppressor's education often discourages critical thinking about systems of power and injustice, replacing it with rote learning or propaganda. So your whole education system is nothing but propaganda. From when you go into pre-K, that's why they made it a mandate that you have to put your child in the school system. I'm gonna do a lesson on that, right? So you can be indoctrinated, because their whole plan was to make you as an ant, a worker ant. They want a nation of workers, not thinkers. That was the quote of the Rockefeller. Let's go here. Number 4, cultural. It says erasure. It says education controlled by an oppressor may suppress or devalue the language, traditions, and knowledge systems of the oppressed. They're not going to never tell you that you ruled all Europe. They're not going to never tell you that you ruled the world at one time. They're going to tell you that you was started off in slavery as slaves. It says replacing them with those of the dominant group. This leads to a loss of cultural identity and pride. That's why Jake is all into confusion and derision, and they're all over the place. They in this rat, hamster wheel, right? Trying to survive, not understanding what's going on. They don't see the big picture because they're in a hamster wheel. They can't see what's in front of them. Salakia. It says right here, this is a big one too. 5, It says misrepresentation of history. This heavy. It says an oppressor may rewrite history to portray themselves as benevolent or justified while minimizing or denying the suffering of the oppressed. Is this not done in every way? They'll tell you to get over slavery. Oh, that was so long ago. Let it go. Pull your own self up by your own bootstraps. These some devils. I'm gonna read that again. I'm gonna let that marinate. It says an oppressor may rewrite history. They gave you all this rewrote history. They lied about everything. They whitewashed the whole Bible. They said you never contributed to anything. They said you was nothing but slaves. You was running around Africa butt naked. Right? And they had to domesticate you. That's the lie that they told you. It says portrayed themselves as benevolent or justified while minimizing or denying the suffering of the oppressed. And that's all these devils do. These modern day Edomites do it in different ways. They'll say little shit that they say, right? Oh, it wasn't a big deal. Oh, that was so long ago. Get over it. You know, it is what it is. They use all these things to deflect. This manipulation, it is a manipulation tactic, affects how generations perceive their past and what they believe is possible in the future. So they have totally stripped you down from everything that you know, your greatness, and it gave you a pseudo education based on folly. School, the modern day school system is to indoctrinate you on a bunch of shit you're not going to never use in life, to keep you occupied in folly. So you won't really never find out what's really going on in the big grand scheme of things. And they even give you sports and entertainment to make you more docile, right? And they give you this junk food to fatten you up for the slaughter. Let's go here. And these people are oblivious. They got these ninjas arguing over this and that to keep them in a matrix, right? The matrix. Let's go here. So this world right here is a matrix, and people caught up in it. They entrapped, they entwined. Let's go here. Right here. I'm gonna read this. It says symbolically. Give me 1 second. This thing might cut off. 1 second. I'm just gonna go here because I think it's gonna cut off on me, but I'm gonna read it from my phone, my other phone. It says symbolically, the word matrix comes from the word Maya, which means illusion. Illusion means something which appears different than it is. One can't disassociate the word illusion from perception. Perception is the process of sensory experience from which we gather knowledge about the external world. Such knowledge helps a human survive and play a tiny role in a larger evolutionary process of survival of the species. It says our sensory perception has evolved only to see mere fraction of the truth which is essential for survival. This means our sensory experience of the world is limited and provides only a window into reality. Yeah, so that's heavy, and it's more to this, but yeah, what you've been taught is all you know until somebody teaches you something different. That's just the way it goes. And we've been set up through the spirit to make you reborn. Your mind has to go through a rebirth process. Matter of fact, in the movie Matrix, Neo had to go back and be reborn. That was very spiritual. He came into one of those incubators, right? So you have to be reborn in your mind. So that means the things that you was taught, the things that you believed in, the way that your parents raised you was all incorrect. You know what I'm saying? And you have to filter your mind through the spirit and through the scriptures and through the understanding of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shah, or you're not of his sheep. It's as simple as that. That means you're of the world. And what business do the world got into the truth? No business. But yeah, I'm going to call it a lesson on that. Hopefully this lesson has been edifying. Call Allah Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shah Ba'ashim Rachat Kodash. Shalom.